During our adventures, we use a lot of electricity in a large variety of ways. The highest energy consumer is, of course, going on road trips in our Tesla Model Y. Most of that energy comes from superchargers, and while we are basically living out of the car on those trips, we use the power ports in our Model Y to charge our cameras, phones, or power our TesFridge, etc. When we're on camping trips in our all-electric travel trailer RV, the electricity is entirely from the 2,650 watts of solar panels that I installed on the roof. Those solar panels produce enough electricity to power my Talaria MX4 electric dirt bike and the kids' Greenger Saddleback e-bikes with energy to spare for living in the trailer continuously. However, there are times when we're in need of electricity away from our travel trailer or our Model Y, and that's where a portable power station comes into play. Ideally, the power station is combined with solar panels, turning it into a solar generator to collect electricity from the sun. In a past video, I reviewed the Opus Mega 1, testing it in a variety of circumstances. I've loved having that power station, not only for using it during our adventures, but also for emergency preparedness, because we, like most people, use electricity in such a large variety of ways these days, and the power grid is not always available. It's important to already have a source of power before the emergency, because after the power grid fails, it's generally too late to acquire an electricity generator, whether it's a traditional propane, gasoline, or diesel generator, or a solar generator, because many people don't already have one. And if an emergency hits, the general public is now highly motivated to get one. I recognize that there are pros and cons to all technology, and I think it's a good idea to understand those limitations and hopefully even have a variety of options as circumstances change over time. A big problem with gasoline, propane, or diesel generators is that the fuel is a consumable resource which must be resupplied eventually. And they're loud and create fumes that can kill you if you're not using it correctly. But the huge advantage is that they work as long as they have fuel, regardless of whether the sun is shining. The huge advantage of solar generators is that the sun is the source of electricity, and it's not going anywhere in the long term, albeit I totally recognize that it's intermittent depending on day versus night and the cloud cover, and that's why it's so important to combine batteries and solar panels together. Another advantage for solar is it's silent. Anyway, I could go on longer, but suffice it to say, it's important to understand your options, then take action and be prepared. So when ALLPOWERS reached out to me offering their R1500 Portable Power Station with their 200-watt fold-out solar panels for me to test out and share with you all, I jumped on that opportunity to see how well this power station performs. I'm going to test out all of the functionality to see how well it works out for us and our needs. It's important to test the limits of technology to understand how to use it and know what it's capable of before it's a mission-critical situation. After watching this video, if you want to pick up an ALLPOWERS portable power station for yourself, I will include a link in the description below for 10% off. This is the ALLPOWERS website of the exact device that they sent to me. This is the R1500 with the 200-watt solar panel. But you can see there are a variety of other options here, and you can purchase it with 600 watts of solar panels as an example. If we continue on down the page, it has a feature specification list of all of the key features here. And I'm just going to jump down here to where it lists these out individually. So as an example, at a high level, it just lists out a couple of different types of devices and how long it could run them for. And then if we continue on down, you can see that you can charge this from an AC power source up to 1500 watts, and it actually has 3 different modes, and 1500 is the fastest. Over here, solar input up to 650 watts, and it would charge in 1.8 hours in that case. Car charging, it can do 12 or 24 volts. It does not come with that adapter, so I am not able to test that. And then here, AC plus solar input, it can do 1500 watts max of both of those combined, and it would charge it in 0.8 hours in that case. It has a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functionality, and the Bluetooth functionality does not require you to have an account, which I quite like. And then also UPS function, so it will cut over in as fast as 15 milliseconds. So if you were to keep, for instance, your freezer plugged into this device, being powered from it, it will pass through the electricity from the grid straight through to the freezer. But if the power goes down, then in 15 milliseconds it'll cut over and just continue to power the refrigerator, freezer, whatever, from the R1500. So in 15 milliseconds it'll cut over and the device won't even notice that the power was switched over. And then down here, this comes with lithium iron phosphate batteries, which it estimates at 3,500 cycles. And in my experience with these ratings, that typically means down to 80% of its original capacity. So you can still continue to use it, it just won't have as much energy stored. And then it can be expanded with up to 3 external battery banks, which it has the listed information here about that and how much power that could be storing, which would be quite a lot. One other thing worth mentioning is here it is certified for UL, which is Underwriters Laboratories in the United States, and it has a bunch of other certifications as well. And it weighs 36.8 pounds. Before getting into the field testing, I'm just going to show some of the basic features here. So we have 2 USB-A ports on the front that can support 18 watts each, and then we have USB-C that can support 100 watts each, and that has its own power button right here that you can press to turn on that component. But what that turns on is also this over here, which is a traditional 12-volt power socket like you would see in a vehicle typically. All of these ports down here are covered with these nice thick rubber covers to keep the dust and dirt out. These could potentially get in the way, but in my experience they haven't been a problem. So then down here we have these 4 20 amp regular 120 volt AC sockets, and these are controlled by this power button right here. So to turn on the whole unit, you press and hold the power button and it turns on. And right now nothing would happen, although you could start to charge it with solar panels and things like that. But if you press this right here, then that turns on these ports over here as well as this port. And then here you can press this button and this turns on the inverter, which powers these AC ports down below. And then right here for this DC button, if we press and hold it for 3 seconds, then it toggles on the Bluetooth functionality or Wi-Fi, which you can see now is indicated with those icons right there. So this functionality on the face is actually pretty straightforward. I really love how it estimates the time left remaining to being empty if you have an electrical load on it, and then if you are charging it, it also shows you an estimate of how much time until it's full. So not all power stations have that estimate. Another thing that is driven by this DC power button right here is these 2 wireless charging stations here on top. So I can put my phone right there and it will charge it wirelessly. And then around over here on the side, it has 2 battery expansion ports so that you can plug in 2 at the same time. And then around over here on the other side, it has another access panel, and this is for the AC charging cord. This is the AC overload protector, and this is the plug for the solar inputs. And you can see what those ports look like here. And then here on the back, it has an information sticker with a bunch of the detailed stats of this specific unit that I'm reviewing. I have plugged a bunch of things into the power station to simulate how we will be using this in the future. As an example up here, you can see I have all 4 USB ports with things plugged into them. This one right here is going to my Insta360. This white one is going over here to my Action 3. And then down below we have this one, this USB-C that's going to my cell phone. And then this USB-C right there is going over here to my Dell laptop. Now this Dell laptop, you can see here it's pulling 85 watts. So it's not getting the full 100 watts, but this laptop battery is at about 90%, so maybe that's just all that it needs is 85 watts. I have this other laptop, and it is being powered by this AC port right here. And then this other AC port, I have plugged into it, this Intoval USB hub. So you could use this to expand the USB ports, of which this one you can see has 4 USB-C and 4 USB-As. Since this only has 4 itself, this is now a way to double the USB capacity. And here on the power station, you can see indicated the total amount of energy being pulled by all the different devices. And now let's take this power station out into the real world and test it out. Another really important use case for a power station like this is for our kids' e-bikes. They like to ride them around in varied locations. As an example, right now we are here at one of the Payson Lakes, up Payson Canyon in Utah, and we can't get our trailer here. So I carried the portable power station down this trail, and the kids are able to now have a lot of time that they can be riding around on these bikes. And then we have another kilowatt hour of battery storage, or just over, in the ALLPOWER power station. And all of them are able to plug in their bikes to it here. And I don't know exactly how many times we can charge their bikes off of the power station, but as a point of reference, their bike says that it is 105 watt hours. This portable power station is 1152 watt hours. So if you took those numbers straight up, then you'd potentially be able to charge the bikes 11 times. But there are efficiency losses when it comes to inverting from DC to AC and then back to the DC bikes. So I don't really know what the answer to that is for sure. I would guess at least maybe 8 charges off of this power station if it was fully charged. Now right now the power station is at 69%, so we obviously would not get all of those charges, would only get 69% worth. But if I were to plug in the solar panels here, which I'm not going to bother to do in this use case because we're not going to be here for a really long time. But I would be able to potentially keep these bikes powered into perpetuity as long as the sun is shining. So right now the bikes are pulling a collective 99 watts off of the power station. And I would say that they will peak at about 150 watts. But right now some of them are pretty close to being full, so they're not pulling the full wattage that they are capable of when they are not full. And then of course, in addition to charging their bikes, I can just drop my cell phone right here and it's wirelessly charging from the power station. Here is an example of using the ALLPOWERS Portable Power Station in a camping setting. I'm up here in the mountains of Payson Canyon in Utah. And it just so happens that right now you can see the sky is fairly overcast. So not ideal solar production right now, but I wanted to see what it would look like. So I've set it up right here. And you can see the panels are just here on this pinnacle. There's no shading here. Other than the clouds, of course. And let's see how much power production we're getting. So you can see right now we're getting 57 watts of solar input. Considering this is a 200 watt solar panel array, that gives you an idea of what you might expect on a cloudy day like today. And pointing directly at the sun, you can see this is what the clouds look like. So definitely far from ideal, but you can still be getting power from solar panels even in clouds. Coming around over here to the back of the solar panels, they have these useful kickstands on the back. And these are elastic right here so that you can swing this out farther depending on the tilt that you need on the panels or bring it in. And it has 4 of those. Right here on the side of the power station is where the solar panels plug in, and that's the type of connector that it uses. And one thing I really love about this solar panel is that it has this pouch on the side. And I open this up and you can see we have all of the cables for plugging the solar panels into various other devices. You can see it has different adapters here. And it has the AC power cord in here that came with the portable power station. And then we have another solar panel type plug here that is what these adapters go with. And then of course the cable that we just used. So we can keep this all nicely contained in here, and you can see that the cable that's coming out of the solar panels is coming out of this pouch. So it goes out of the pouch and you can just lift this up and you can zip it all the way around and the cable is coming out. But when you're done using it, you open this up and you coil that cable up into this pouch, zip it up, and it's all fully contained in there and it's really clean. And now that you can see how this power station and the solar output works on a fully cloudy day, I'll show you what it looks like on a sunny day. A useful test that I think is important to know is how quickly will this portable power station charge up in the day. And today is a perfectly sunny day, so I wanted to test it today. So right now we are first thing in the morning. You can see the panels are just starting to get some sunlight on them, but the whole array is not yet in the sun. And so this is about as early as I can get sun here in my yard. And if you look behind the camera, you can see the sun is just right there behind the tree, and it's just about to peek up over the tree. And so this is going to be a good test to see how quickly it charges today. I intended to run down the power station to 0%, but I found that the inverter over here, if I press it right now, you'll see it just kind of blinked briefly, won't stay on. So if the battery's down to 5%, the inverter won't come on. And over here on the DC power as well, it will stay on at this 5% point, but that takes longer to discharge it, and I wanted to take advantage of the sun. So anyway, we're starting this at 5%. So I'm now going to plug in the solar panels here, and we'll get this test started. And right now it is getting 14 watts of input from this 200 watt array. And so once all of this is in the sun, then we'll be able to see better how much output capability it has. But also keep in mind the angle of the sun. I have these pointed right now pretty much exactly towards the sun in the right general direction this way, but vertically they're tilted back a little bit farther than they need to be, but the legs on the back are not long enough for it to have a higher tilt. And I put it up onto this board so that the blades of grass don't block the lower portion of the solar panels. So the bottom's up a little bit higher. I think this is okay though, because the sun is pretty quickly going to be at a 90-degree angle to these panels, how they sit right there. It is an hour and a half later, and you can see based on the shadows here that the solar panels are in the full sun now and have been for, I don't know, the last 15 minutes or so. And then also looking at the panels based on the angle of the sun and where they are angled, I think they're actually doing really good. I'm going to be shifting them more this direction in a little bit, but right now if they're being perpendicular to the sun, they're pretty close to it. They're slightly off, but it's close enough. And if we look over here, it looks like we're getting 129 watts out of these 200-watt solar panels right now. So I'm going to actually go ahead and shift them and see how much that affects it. The solar output is now at 131 watts or 130, so it's slowly increasing. So it didn't really change it much shifting the panels this way. And over the hour and a half that the unit has been out here, barely getting any sun, we're now up to 8% from 5%. But here, now that the sun is fully shining on the panels, we're going to be charging much more quickly. It is now up to 19% and it's getting 141 watts of solar. And right now there is some shading that's approaching from the tree that's up there. And so I'm going to actually just be moving these panels all the way over to here just to be in a nice big open area for the remainder of the day. We are in October right now, so you can see that the shade from this tree, this one that is right here, is peaking right around in this area. And eventually, as the winter progresses and these shadows continue up in the winter, eventually we wouldn't be able to have solar panels out here in the backyard. I'd have to have them up on the side of the house or in the front of the house. Just shading gets a lot worse in the winter because the shadows are cast way longer across the ground. And this is them in their repositioned position. And as the sun tracks throughout the day, I'll come out here and shift them periodically. You can see we're at 133 watts right now. So less than it was before, but because the shadows were about to hit it, it would have been even worse still. It is now 1 in the afternoon, and these panels should be producing about close to their maximum. If I put this toilet paper roll right here, you can see where the shadow falls. It's a little bit pointed to the left of the sun, but it's really quite close, and it's definitely within the 15 degrees that it should be to really maximize solar production. And I've gone across all 4 of these and they're pointed at about the same. So I point that out just because looking here, it's getting 145 about watts of solar. It's bounced around a little bit, but I haven't seen it get all the way up over 150 yet. And right now it is a little bit on the hot side, and solar panels don't produce as well when they're hot. And so that's going to affect it somewhat as well. In fact, I can show you right here that it is exactly 70.9 degrees ambient right now. And I'll put a card above to the video I made about these sensors, but you can see it's 70.9 degrees Fahrenheit right now, which is not crazy hot, but with the sun shining on the panels, they are probably up closer to 100 degrees. And then down here you can see a graph of the temperatures. This experiment, I started it at 9 o'clock, but the sun wasn't fully on the panels yet. And then by about 10 o'clock it was. And so the temperature was 61 degrees at that point, and then it has been climbing since then. We are now 3 hours into this experiment, and we've gained almost 30%, well, 28% on the battery. I did just barely notice some imperfections. You can see there's some cracking along here, and it's actually slightly bulged, and I'm pretty sure I didn't damage it, so I think it arrived like that. And you can see there's some bubbles up here in the upper edge. So that might be why the panel's not quite performing as high as I would think it should. It's 5:03 p.m. These panels have been out here collecting sun all day, and I've moved them many times as the shadows have been changing the shading from trees, and right there's the garden shed. And right now I have them set up on this board, and I put a couple of bricks here behind them to help, because the back supports are too short to get it at the angle of the sun, which is quite low in the sky right now. And so using my toilet paper roll method right here, I can put this on the panel, and you can see it's pretty close to being straight on, and I've measured that across all the panels. So this is about as good as you're going to get this time of day. Keep in mind it's October, beginning of October, and the battery is now at 72%. So and we're getting 123 watts. It is not looking likely that we're going to 100% charge this thing all day today. But the days are short this time of year, and so that's the limitation in the fall. And the solar production starts to drop off in September, and now we're in October, and it's just going to be worse from here on out through the rest of the winter. And that's to be expected with solar in general. And also, I should mention right now, this is what the sky looks like. It's clear. There was a little bit of cloud cover that went over earlier today, but it was fairly brief. And there was a little bit of shading from this tree as well, but I moved it pretty quickly once that shading began to hit the panels. Those have affected it, but not overly much. This test really, I'd say, is pretty real world. I've given it as much attention as a normal person probably would, and I've moved them probably 5 times today. I'm going to leave this here until the sun has fully set, and then we will see what the percentage is on the ALLPOWERS Portable Power Station. I think I'm gonna have to call it. You can see it's getting shaded from the garden shed right now. Nowhere else on our property has anywhere that I can put the solar panels and still be getting light. And you can see the battery is at 77%, but we're only getting 10 watts. So we're definitely not going to get any more today. So over the course of a short day, we were able to charge this up from 5% to 77% over the course of all the sun that we could get out of our yard here. I wish that I could give you some real world performance data at a better time of the year, but this is when I am reviewing this unit, and so this is what the sun is. And so to be fair, the sun varies pretty dramatically from year to year, meaning that throughout the year the weather is variant, and then also, of course, the solar production varies at the time of the year that it is and how long the days are, etc. And then, of course, that is affected by the region that you're in and what the typical weather is in that location. So this unit, I'm sure, could get fully charged by this 200-watt solar array over the course of a day in other times of the year, and especially when the days are really long. It's just the days are so short right now, and the sun, in my case, the shading of the trees was getting close to and starting to cover the panels here and there a little bit, and I had to move it a lot to try to stay in a window of light across my yard. And so there's just a lot of variance when it comes to solar in general, and so just keep that in mind when you are considering solar and how you're going to use it. Is there direct sunlight, and is there enough of it when and where you're going to be using it? Oh, and I should also mention this is 6 p.m. that I'm concluding this experiment, and the solar panels started getting sun at 10 a.m. So it took 8 hours to get 72% of the battery charged. Something else I thought I would experiment with is using a different set of solar panels. These are the panels that came with the ALLPOWERS Portable Power Station. These are from Opus. These are 240-watt solar panels, and right now it's getting 168 watts. And I've seen it higher. Just a few minutes ago it was up to like 174. So I'm not sure what to make of this. It's not really getting as much input as I would expect it to, considering that these panels are pointed right at the sun. And then also the sun is completely unencumbered by clouds at the moment. Another thing to demonstrate is that you can be charging it with the solar panels, and at the same time you can see I have the wire from the solar panels going over here, and then I have the power station also plugged in with the AC outlet here on the back side. So it was getting 171 watts of solar, and now total it's getting 820-ish watts from the combined AC and solar input at the same time. I love how it shows here the 26-minute estimate to recharge. I think that that is a great feature to show how much longer it will take. Now keep in mind, 85%, the last couple of percent usually takes the longest, so that 26 minutes is not really indicative of how quickly you could gain, say, 15% at a lower state of charge. But that's still helpful information to see. As another use case for the ALLPOWERS Portable Power Station, this is my Talaria MX4, and you can see I have the battery removed, which is often how I transport it on my bike rack. And you can see over here in the back of my car, I've set this up so that I'm charging my Talaria battery, which is a 2.7 kilowatt hour battery, and I'm charging it with the ALLPOWERS station. So you can see right here, for instance, it's pulling 714 watts at the moment. And if this thing was fully charged, this is just over 1 kilowatt hour. So that is just under half of this capacity. So that would give me that much more range, assuming I have time to connect these together and let them charge. So if I was to go on a camping trip without my travel trailer, which is normally what I use to charge this and its solar panels, this would give me some additional range. And if I connect the solar panels to it, then that would give me that much more range as well. So this is just another example of how you can use the portable power station. And here is yet another use case for it. This is our TesFridge. It's a compressor refrigerator that's shaped like a cooler, and it's shaped to fit specifically here in the sub trunk of our Tesla Model Y. So you can see how it cuts in on the sides there. And we use this all the time. You can see it runs from the 12-volt power socket right here, and it normally would plug in here in the back of our Model Y. But there are times where this is useful to use outside of the Model Y. We've used it a number of times camping, for instance. And sometimes we want to be able to use it where there is no power available, and that's where it's useful to bring this power station, because there's times where we can't get the car there to be able to power it with the car. So as an example right here, it is currently powering the fridge, and it's pulling about 34 watts or so, 33 watts. So obviously a power station can just be used in a variety of ways, and I'm just demonstrating a couple of examples that I have that have been useful for us. If you're interested in more information about this TesFridge, I'll put a card above too when I reviewed this. This power station has a 15 millisecond cutover time. So as a demonstration, right here we have our upright freezer plugged in to this port right here. And then over here, the power station is being plugged from just the house, the AC power. So if the power from the grid were to go out, which I'm going to simulate by pulling this out, you can see that it stops charging it because it was currently not at 100%. But normally this would just be at 100% all the time. But it continued to power the freezer. And over here I can hear the compressor running, and it didn't stopped running when I unplugged the power station. So it just continues to power the freezer, just like the power didn't even go out. And then when the power comes back on, which I'll go ahead and plug it back in now, and the freezer never knew that the grid was down at all. Let's try doing a surge capacity test. This here is my Tesla Model Y, and I have plugged it in to the ALLPOWERS Portable Power Station with this Electron mobile connector that I reviewed some time ago, and I'll put a card above to that review video. You can see the Tesla is pulling 588 watts right now, and the battery is currently at 85% here on the power station. So what I'm going to do is come in here, and I'm going to adjust the amps here on the Model Y screen up until this thing shuts off. So I'm going to be measuring how much it takes for this to be forced to shut down. So I'm going to just keep tapping this, going up to 6, and then I'm going to keep the camera over here so that you can see exactly what happens. So 688, now the Tesla is at 7 amps. 787 is the wattage for 7 amps. Now keep in mind this power station is rated for up to 1800 watts, which it says right here on that fine print there on the front of the screen. The cooling fan just kicked on higher, so we're at 943 watts, and the Tesla's at now 9 amps. I just moved it up, 1061 watts, and now the Tesla is going up to 10 amps, 1178. So now the Tesla's at 11 amps, 1283, 12 amps. This is the highest that this mobile connector will do because it's plugged into a standard household outlet. So I need to put on some additional adapters to be able to get above that. What I did is I switched the Electron unit over to its NEMA 1450 plug, and then that's going into an adapter goes to TT30, and then from TT30 to NEMA 515. So this is something that I figured out I can do to basically bypass the intelligence that's in this line just for a short burst. This will be totally fine, and we're trying to see how much power this can output. So I'm going to continue at the 12 amps that we left off at, so I just told it to start charging. And over here you can see that it's going to show us when it starts to ramp up those amps. And then also over here we will see the wattage increasing. And then let's just continue upward with the march until it is forced to shut off due to too much being pulled from it. So now the Tesla is at 13 amps, and that's now indicated there, 1490, almost 1500 watts. And then 14 amps from the Model Y. So now we're up to 1580, or 16. So now the Tesla is at 15 amps. So we're really approaching the limit now of 1800 watts that this power station can output. So 1765. Now I'm happy with this, that it is sustaining this amount because it's right there near the limit. But now let's trip it. So I'm going to go up to 16 amps on the Tesla, and this might trip it. Although the continuous limit is 1800 watts, the surge is higher than that. I'll put on screen what the surge is, but it's holding 1882 just fine. So now the Tesla is going up to 17 amps. So now that's going up to 1968, almost 2 kilowatts. Now the Tesla is at, oh, it just cut out. So that's the limit that it was able to achieve. Now, when it comes to surge, in normal situations, the surge is milliseconds long, or just very brief seconds. Like when an air conditioner compressor starts up, it pulls a lot of amperage right away and then is leveled out. This Tesla is a little bit different in that it's a sustained amount of energy that is pulling from it. So the fact that it peaked at 1988, and that's higher than the 1800, and it had already been sustaining the 1800 and 1900 for a bit, I'm totally happy with that. If we were to spike it up to, say, 2600 watts for a brief millisecond, I don't know of a way to simulate that test with what I have available to me, but I'm totally happy to have shown that this device can sustain the amount that it says that it's capable of providing. The next test I'm going to do is, right now I have this plugged into an AC power source, and I'm going to charge this all the way up to 100%, and then we're going to measure how much electricity comes out of it until it shuts down. It is now charged up to 100%, and I have plugged it in to this electricity meter here, and this is going to be tracking the kilowatt hours that come out of the unit. And then I have this plugged in, which is the same thing I showed you before. So let's go ahead and plug in the Model Y now. And to be clear, this is just a demonstration, and it's a way for the electricity to get consumed by something, but I'm not necessarily trying to add a lot of useful range to the Model Y because I recognize that it's not going to be a lot. I have adjusted the Tesla to 8 amps, as you can see right there. And over here it's indicating that it's pulling that 8 amps at 119 volts, and 1 kilowatt is what's coming out of the car, according to that, which it just rounds up to the nearest kilowatt. Over here you can see it's actually 943 watts according to that, And then if we look over here, we can see that the wattage according to this is 956. So slightly different. I'm not really sure why, but there's a difference there. And then over here you can see it's indicating the kilowatt hours. And this is already down to 97%, surprisingly. And I'm just going to leave this here, and we'll wait until this completely shuts off, which based on my prior testing will be at 5%, because the inverter doesn't stay on below that for some reason. And we'll see how much energy actually comes out of it. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting that this portable power station is a helpful gas can, so to speak, for electric cars. It is a very small amount of electricity because it stores, about 1,100 watt hours, and the Tesla is about 75,000 watt hours. Big difference. But just as a point of reference, in case it goes up, our Model Y is currently at 84%, so we'll see what it is when the power station shuts down. The power station is now at 6%, so it is about to shut off. And I'm going to go ahead and actually just lower the amps here on my app down to 5 amps. So you'll see up here the watts drops down just here at the last little bit, so we can get as much power out of the power station as we can before it shuts off. And there it goes. It just shut off. The car just beeped, and you can see the light on here showing white, which means the power cut off. And the total time was 1 hour and 5 minutes. I started this about a minute after the test began. And then the Tesla went up in power. It looks like it went up 1%. Yeah, it went up to 85%, which is, like I said, not important. That's not very much range. That's 3 or 4 miles of range on this car. So it just gives you a point of reference though. And the final result is that 954 watt hours came out of the portable power station, and it's rated for 1,152 watt hours. And so the difference in those numbers, I assume, is just efficiency losses in the inverter. So now what I'm going to do is reset this number to 0, and then we're going to measure the amount of electricity coming out of the grid to go back into charging this thing. And it's beginning to charge, and once again this test is starting at 5%, keep in mind, because the inverter doesn't stay on below 5%, and I don't want to take the time that it takes to use these really low powered draw to get it completely down to 0. So here, starting at 5%, it's now ramping up the charging, and we're going to see how, well, I guess quickly it charges this unit, but also how much electricity is pulled from the house to fully charge this thing, considering it is supposed to be storing 1,152 watt hours. I'm going to go ahead and open up the ALLPOWERS app, and then up here I'm going to press and hold this button for 3 seconds, which is what it says it takes to enable Bluetooth. And up here I can now see the Bluetooth icon there. And then down here I'm just looking at the devices. Okay, add Bluetooth device. Turn on the phone's Bluetooth function. Yeah, that's already on. After a short press on the Bluetooth button, turn on the screen. Then long press again to enter Bluetooth mode. So it's in Bluetooth mode already, really. I just did that. So then I'm saying yes, use it, the location at this time, and allow it to find our position. Now it just popped up with the device. This is the R1500 from ALLPOWERS. And so I'm tapping on that, and it's connecting to it, and there we have it. So now it's showing that it's 9%, and up here it shows 9% there as well. So this is going to be helpful, of course, to be able to monitor the power station when you're not near it, but you can see how charged it is or discharged, or how much wattage is being pulled from it, whatever it is. You might not be physically next to it all the time, and so it's really nice to have an app that just shows you that information remotely. Also of note, you can enable or turn on the inverter for AC power from here. You can also turn on the DC power from here. There is a feature in here called work mode, and you can see it says fast mode, and I just barely enabled that. Previously it was in standard mode, and when I did that you can see it kicked up the charging speed up here, and it's ramping up, and we'll see what it stops at. But that is work mode, apparently is their term for how quickly it will charge. So it looks like it's getting up to 1,500 watts, which is what it says in the manual it should be able to charge at. And so you can see down here, if I change it back to standard mode, that up here, you hear that beep, and now it's dropping back down and it's charging at a slower rate. It is more healthy for batteries to charge them slowly, more slowly at least than their maximum typically. It depends on the battery and such. But what they're giving us is 3 options. So you had a 1,000 watt input on normal mode, you saw 1,500 watts on the fast mode, and then on mute mode, that's interesting they call it mute, but it looks like that is dropping it down even more. And let's see what it gets down to. But for the longevity of the battery, it is healthier to charge it slow if you have the time. And so in this case, it looks like 371 watts is the slowest it will charge, and this would be
potentially what I do if I'm just not in a hurry to go anywhere and I just wanted it to get charged up eventually, and I want it to be as healthy for the battery as possible because it's cooler. There's less heat buildup. So for now, though, for my testing purposes, I'm going to just put it to standard mode, and it's going to be charging closer to that 1,000 watts. As a point of reference, it is now at 90%, and it's been 1 hour and 5 minutes. So you can get the majority of the charge in the first hour, and then it takes a lot longer to charge after that. You can see it's down to 400 watts right now. And there it goes. It just barely finished, and you can see we're at 1 hour and 34 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop that. So that last 10% took an additional half an hour, which is not surprising. And then if we look over here at the power meter, it took 1.088 kilowatt hours. So that's 1,088 watt hours. I'll put on the screen here how much power this would have consumed if we had charged from 0 to 100% instead of 5 to 100%.
In summary, I'm pleased with the performance of the power station. It has a good amount of useful stored energy, and it's capable of powering any normal household device you'd plug into a standard 15 amp power socket in your house. I really like the design of the solar panel with its carrying handle and storage pouch. But the solar performance on it is a bit lower than I think it should be. I'm not sure if it's a defect with my specific solar panel, but at least it does still produce some electricity. In general, with solar though, it's always a good idea to have more solar panels than you think you'll need, because there is an immense variability of available energy from the sun depending on the time of year and current weather. Think cloud cover, for instance. This power station can handle up to 650 watts of solar panels all connected to it at the same time to be able to charge it up more quickly for days when solar exposure is limited. I like the wireless charging pads on the top of the station, and I like that the USB-C ports are 100 watts instead of 65 watts or less like many others are. I do wish it had more USB ports on the front though, preferably 4 to 6 100-watt USB-C ports. I like that it has a Bluetooth app that you can connect to the device without creating an account to be able to monitor the basic stats of the system from a distance or change the AC charge speed. I think it would be better though to have a button on the front to more simply change the charge speed. I like that there are battery expansion modules you could get to increase your storage capacity, but I wasn't able to test that in this video. I also wasn't able to test the ability to charge it from a 12-volt power socket in a vehicle because they don't include that adapter when you purchase either the power station or the solar panels. Personally, I think that they should include more adapters with the power station because all it comes with is a power cord to charge it from a standard household outlet. I hope it's been helpful to see how well the ALLPOWERS R1500 Portable Power Station has been working for us, and if you're interested in picking up one for yourself, I will include a link in the video description below for 10% off. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.